So the main things, what we're going to try to do for these next 4 hours is, one, we're going to go through building the landing page of my site, so then y'all can build your own as your own exercise. And basically the main things I want to cover is to get us all on the same level playing field in terms of understanding CSS and HTML. So the main things we're going to go over. I have great handwriting. Is block. Block versus inline elements.
That's the screen.
Sorry.
We can't see that on camera, which is fine.
Block versus inline elements. These are like I guess the common core, for lack of a better word. And if you can understand this short list that I'm about to put down, then you're set. You're going to be able to build HTML, CSS, as many websites as you want. So block versus inline, positioning, box model, and then other common like styling characteristics, but then the other big one for me is floats and clears. So these are what I've found to be the most common, hiccups where people have trouble understanding, digesting the material. So if you can understand all those, all the other stuff is pretty straightforward. So my goal is to do the best job I can in explaining this to you. So first off, we have our index.html file here. Basically, just to run down, and yes, ma'am.
Could you read it? Because I can't understand the last year.
We have block versus inline elements. We have positioning. We have the box model. And we have floats and clears. And actually, float and clear.
Is that an ampersand?
Yes, and float and clear. Okay? And you can even add right here, you can add inline block as well. All right. So just to go a little rundown on this, these are just the presets that you're going to have in any HTML website. This up here just says that you're going to be writing HTML5. You're going to be doing it in English, and this is the meta character set, which is basically that or Latin, which you'll always have this. Yeah. There you go. Sorry about that, guys. And I mean, this is totally up to you. I wouldn't suggest, you don't have to take all these notes. We're just, because you're going to be, by the end of the 5 days, you're going to have gone through this process so much that you're going to understand all this.
But writing helps me remember.
Okay. All right. All right, so what we're going to do here is just, what am I doing? There you go. Is if you just go to ryanbonhart.com, and this is what we're going to build. Hopefully we'll get it done in like 2-3 hours. That way y'all can start on your own stuff today. Okay? So what I like to use, and this is why I told y'all if you're using Internet Explorer, to download either Firefox or Google Chrome, because for the next 5 days, and as long as you build sites, the inspect element is going to be your best friend. Okay, so what I mean by that is if you're on Google Chrome, what you can do is go on any part of the site and click inspect element, and it gives you all the code for the site. In other words, we have the HTML over in here, and as you scroll over each each component, it highlights it on the site where it's at. So when I scroll over this H1 tag right here, you see that, you know, the blue and the orange, which I'll explain what that means here in a little bit, but you can start to see. And then if you click on it, you'll see the CSS over here, okay? All right. So we're going to start off by building this header section right here, because I'm not going to do the nav until later, because it has more complex components. So we're going to come back and do the nav bar up top here at the end. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into our code here, and we still have Ryan Bonhart, and we're going to take this paragraph. I mean, so for the most part, you know, I'm just going to go through this real fast. This is, you know, for the most part, anytime you're using a tag in HTML, I know 90% of us have gone through the Shay How and the other assignment that Todd gave y'all, but just for the couple that haven't, just to catch you up to speed, this is a tag. For the most part, you'll see the rare circumstances where it doesn't have an opening and closing tag, but for the most part, you always have an opening tag, and then the closing tag is just the same as the opening, but you have this, that's a /, correct? Yes. / right there before it. Okay, and then all this, and P is for paragraph, so all this in between is the paragraph text. All right, now, in past HTML, you've always had divs, but now with HTML5, they've come up with different ones. They have sections. You still have divs. They have asides. They have headers. They have footers. Trying to think if I forgot anything. Article, thank you. Article. And for the most part, it's for semantic in terms of like reading it so that other coders can understand the structure of yours. So I'll try to incorporate that as much as possible. But you know, if you just use div, it works. So at this point in time in history, fine as well. So for this top section of the site, I'm going to use a section instead of a div. So basically, what we're saying is everything at the top here. So all that is going to be contained in this section right here, all right? So we're going to have a section tag, and we're going to have an opening and closing section tag, so go ahead and put that. Yep. And then just push enter, and it'll do the proper spacing for you. And inside this tag, we have 2 lines, okay? We have the big header, which the way I've done it here is an H1 with welcome to ryanbonhart.com, and then we have an H2 with my goal is to be a world-class learner and teacher. So what we're going to go ahead and do is put inside this section an H1, and it's going to say welcome to Ryan Bonhart, how to do that, .com. And then let's just go ahead and do that H2. And you can just copy it straight from the site. We'll save this, right-click on it, open in browser. All right. Looks nice and plain. We haven't done any styling to it. All right, so let's go ahead and introduce CSS at this point. So there's 3 different ways you can include CSS in a website. You can do it up here in the head section with a style tag. Okay, and let's just say we want to, like Todd showed us that example earlier, where we want to change this H1 color to red. Okay? So now we're going to see this H1 as red. And just for semantic purposes, just so we always know, every time you have a CSS rule. You have, so for this one we did h1. That's my version of a curly brackets. All right, so every time you have a CSS rule, you're always going to have the selector, and we'll get more complex into selectors here in a little bit. For right now, we just have the h1 selector. You're always going to have the attribute followed by a colon with the value semicolon. Now, if you forget, you know, closing out rules, or if you forget this semicolon, then it's not going to work. So one thing you always have to do is be very specific on looking that you follow that exact syntax whenever you're creating a rule. So I'm going to keep this up there. See it? We good? I usually don't. I just left it up there because it auto-completed it for me. What about you?
Oh, I wasn't sure.
I never.
I've usually seen that. So
Yeah.
I was wondering if there's some reasoning for it.
You can.
Remember, if we don't get the question, they don't get
He asked what was my position on including type in the style tag, and it works either way. That was back. I think this is more of a past thing that you had to do as much as now it just your browsers recognize it. Either way it works. Okay, the other way, so that's up in the header. The other way is you can do it inline. Okay? So we can do style equals, and you have your quotation marks there, and we're going to do the same one. We're going to do.
That's the way code academy inline.
Yeah, so I'll show you the benefits and positives and negatives to it. So we're going to do color. I do. Wow, thank you. Appreciate that. Like, what? All right, there we go. So this is also something to show you, which we're going to get more in depth in this as the week goes on, is CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets, and it has a specificity to it. So the more specific a rule on the style is, then it's gonna take precedence. So for instance, when we put it up in the H1, when we put it up in the header right here, and we do all H1s have a color of red, you know, that says all H1s have a color of red. However, when we go down in here into the code and we do an inline tag, that's saying just for that H1, we want it green. So in other words, you can think of it like in terms of this room, if I said everyone in here wear red, and then I tell one of y'all to wear green, it's me telling one of y'all is more specific than me telling everyone to wear red. So that CSS rule is going to take effect. The more specific the rule is, that rule is going to take effect. And you can see here in the inspect element that originally it was red, and then it's crossed out, and green takes precedence. Yeah. Here's the deal. We can we can test this throughout the week as we're building sites. He said if you have a general rule, like if I just did a body tag with a rule versus having like a more specific rule up in the head, which one would take precedence. So anytime you do an inline style that we have this specificity calculator, it automatically takes precedence. Like if you have an inline style, it's going to get that number to 1 right there. So the highest, this calculator, the higher the number, the more specific it is. And we'll refer back to this throughout the week because I think it's better to see it instance by instance to try it out.
You know what happened? When I put it under the body, took it out of the H1, put it in the body, the H1 stayed red, but the paragraph turned green.
And if you were to like put an ID in the CSS, like make that H1 an ID, and then go back into the inline, the H1 itself, since that's the inline element, then the inline would still take precedence over the ID, because that's that element.
So the specificity did take precedence over the general.
All right, and so basically, back when, if you had just one HTML file in your entire site, then it would be fine to do all your styling up here in the header. But now, once we start building sites with multiple pages, it's much easier to have a CSS file because then you can easily, you change it one time in the CSS file for everything, for all the pages across your site. So what we're going to do, and what we'll be doing all week, is linking to a CSS file. So what we're going to go ahead and do here, and I'll show you. You can see it up in here. What we're going to do here is link. And actually, before we do that, let's go ahead and right-click on your folder, click New Folder, and we're just going to make H1 orange. Go ahead and save that, and we're going to save it as you can save it as, doesn't really matter. Well, let's just go ahead and do style.css. Right-click on your folder and do a new file. You can just go ahead and save it as style.css.
And the purpose for doing
So what's,
setting up this folder?
excuse me?
The purpose for setting up this this folder?
This file.
This file.
This
sorry.
file. So basically, if we put all our CSS in the head of the document, okay, like we have here currently, all right, we put it all for that page. It's for that page in the head of the document, all right, and then we create, another page, my projects page, right, and we want all H1s to be read throughout the whole site. Well, then we have to copy all that CSS and put it in the file page, and as files start adding up, whenever you want to make a change, maybe you're like, oh, you know what, I actually want to style all my H1s as green now. You have to go back through every file and change that. Whereas if you have your CSS in its own file, then you just make one change and it goes throughout the whole site.
Can you show the style page again?
Yep. All right, so once we have that in, we're going to go back to the index file, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to link to this. We're going to link to that style.css. So the way it works is we're already in the same folder, so we don't really have to go anywhere. We just tell it that it's in the same folder, so all we have to do is put in style.css. And then you let it know that it's a style sheet. Yes, of course. Well, I'm going to remove it here in a second, but I just want to show you something real quick. Okay. One, I'm going to take out this green style here, and this is just to show you how CSS works. So we have the style sheet that says h1 color should be orange, and then we have in the head tag that h1 color should be red. Okay. What's going to happen here is that it's going to be red. The reason why is if you have two rules of the same level of, I hate this word, specificity, yeah, something like that, then it's going to take the way like the browser, the computer reads it, is it's going to read, and initially it's going to go through and it's going to read the style.css file, right? And it's going to be like, okay, H1s are orange. But then, when it gets done with that document, then it goes through and reads this, and then it says it's red. So whichever one said afterwards, then the last one it heard, if it's the same specific level, then it takes that one. So if we were to, you don't have to do this, but just to show you real quick, if we were to just take this and put it right after that, it's now going to be orange. Okay? Just because it came after that rule. But we'll go ahead and delete these style tags. I just wanted to show you all the different ways to put in CSS. And the reason why I like doing inline elements is sometimes if you're building, if you become a web developer and you're doing freelance work and you're building a website for a client, and you go and get a theme that's already styled and everything. I've seen a lot of people use the inline styling instead of messing with the theme CSS file. So it's just good to know. Or it's sometimes when you embed things into your site, like iframe, stuff like that, it's good to know how to style inline. So. Just want to make sure I'm staying on task here. All right, at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about resets real quick. So you have you have all these different types of browsers out there. You have Internet Explorer, you have Mozilla Firefox, you have Chrome, you have Safari, you have Opera, you have probably browsers that I've never even heard of, that we've never even heard of out there. So they have a lot of different presets, in terms of how big text should be, how big font should be. So what people use is they use CSS resets to reset all the values to default. That way, if one person's on your site and they're using Explorer and someone else is on your site, maybe they're using Opera or something, and if those two browsers have different presets for H1 tags or whatever, and you didn't declare it, then your site could look different with the same code across browsers. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab a reset here. So cssreset.com. So you can see it here. All right. And then, like right now, the most popular CSS reset, and this is the one I've used, is, well, at least according to this site, is Eric Meyer's reset. So let's just click Get the Code here. And there's two ways you can do this. You can copy and paste it into the CSS file, or what you can do is you can grab one of the folders here, like files here. So you can copy it like that, and what we can do is we can come in here. Actually, let's go ahead and do this to keep everything organized. Let's create another new file. And you can paste all his code that you grabbed. However you grabbed it, paste all his code that you grabbed into this new file. Okay? And why this one looks so weird is because this is a minified file. So basically, you know, the interpreter has to read through every line of code and every space of code. So what a lot of people will do with like files that they're not going to edit once they have them done, so like this file, is they take out all the spaces where they can. So, you know, they take out all the spacing, all the entering, and so it's compressed into less lines, so that's less for the, you know, the computer to read through as they're doing it. So it's the same as, this file is the same as if I was to just sit here grab all this. It's the same thing. All right, so I have this all in here. And we'll just save it. Go ahead and save it as reset.css. All right, there's two things we want to do now here just to keep everything nice and organized. Is I'm going to do a new folder. And I'm just going to call it CSS. So now I have a CSS folder. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put both of these the reset.css file. And I'm going to put the style.css file in that CSS folder. Which, in here? So I just put both of those files in the CSS folder. I tried, it didn't work. It works in WebStorm though. Did you go to cssreset.com? Go to right here, this cssreset.com. And yeah, thanks. If y'all, you know, if we get a little ahead of someone, you know, feel free to ask, you know, where we're at so you can get caught up. I want to keep everybody on the same page for the most part. Are you at that site now? Yeah. Okay, so now if you click on Eric Meyer's reset, yep, you can get the code. You can click that full button in the bottom right. You see that full button? Click that. It'll copy it to your clipboard, your clipboard, and then just create a new file in Sublime, and you can paste it right in there and save it as reset.css. Are you on Sublime? Go into your Explorer, like your Windows Explorer, and you can drag and drop them in there through that.
Where did you want these files?
Go ahead and create a new folder. So right-click on your username.github.io and create a new folder and title it CSS. And just so to not get confused throughout the whole course, anytime you name a folder or a file, try to do it, all lowercase letters, and then don't do spaces. Just do like a dash if you want it to be like, a two-named file, like my projects. Do my dash projects.
Why is that?
It's just easier when you're there. If you have to link to something in that folder, you'd have to do like an escape character. So it's just easier to avoid that.
Yeah, I might point out that when you're using your browser on your laptop, if it's capitalized or not capitalized, it might not make any difference. But the server,
Right.
once it's loaded onto the server, is going to know whether it's capitalized or lowercase. And if you have lost track of that, it won't work. And it might take you a while to figure out that was the error.
Yeah, great point. As he said, just I'm repeating it for the people online, is basically, we're used to like using our computers and the case not being sensitive. However, when you're dealing with servers, the case is sensitive, so it's better just to keep it under case.
In WebStorm?
Or you could do, I'm sorry,
In WebStorm, are they using directory instead of folders?
I'm sorry, say that one more time. In WebStorm, are they using?
In WebStorm instead of folders?
Yes. I'm assuming. What are you using, WebStorm or Sublime?
I'm using WebStorm.
WebStorm. So when you right-clicked, was it new directory?
Yeah.
Yeah,
actually,
yeah,
it's,
new.
directory.
Yep, new directory. All right, is everybody good there? Anybody still need a little bit of time? All right, so I'm going to do this. So now we have to link to that reset we just put in, okay? So link href, and let's get a little interactivity going on. Who wants to give a stab at how we tell the computer to get to that reset.css file? So in the last one we did, and we're going to have to change that as well, if you noticed. But last one, the style.css file was in the same folder, the test.github for me folder as the index. So all we had to do is get to it by looking for style.css. But this time it's in the CSS folder. Okay? So what we're going to tell the computer here, the browser, is we're going to say look for the CSS folder. So boom. All right. And then open the CSS folder, and then look for reset.css. Okay? And then it's a style sheet. And so if you noticed, we moved the style.css file as well, so it's also in the CSS folder, so we need to say that. Tell it that as well. And you want to make sure you put the reset before the style. Yeah, of course. Sorry, guys. Thanks for reminding me. Yes.
Would I be too out of line if on WebStorm, it automatically, when I moved the one file, CSS file, into the folder, it automatically added the CSS.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
edited it, it made the addition. I didn't add the second line yet, but the first one that was already there.
So yeah, so that kind of goes along with, I can't remember whose question it was earlier, why, which one to choose. But, you can start to notice that WebStorm has some pretty awesome features that Sublime doesn't. Maybe I'll start using WebStorm here.
Well, but it is the fact that you got to be very aware
Yeah.
of what's happening as you're doing things somewhat, because these things might happen, especially when it's new to you.
Right, exactly. So like,
Tendency of the
yeah, like as once you get experience with it, you're going to forget that it does that for you already. Versus learning new, you're like, what just happened, All right, we all good here? We'll save it. Let's reload it. And no. You're going to see it's smaller because of the reset. Let's see what you got going on here. Did you save it? I wish I could just pop up whoever's screen that had a question. Just switch the screen. Boom.